litter, I mean, it's a complex issue. It would definitely, it's something that I always clean up in the community garden where I am, because I don't like to have a pattern happen where people see trash and more trash accumulates. So I definitely, in my own life, I clean it up where I'm gardening. But it really points to a problem in how we make stuff. It's not so, that's why it's such a hard learned behavior, because it is not intuitive for humans to really care about what happens to stuff after we're done using it. Just like it's not, you know, like if you were using a gourd to drink your water out of and you threw it on the ground, no big deal, it decomposes, right? So for us as an organism, naturally speaking, this is a relatively weird, new, surreal world that we're in, where suddenly everything we use actually is sort of synthetic and hazardous and doesn't just turn into soil. And so we're like, so we have to all learn how to like separate out and rinse out and send back to industry, all these things that like could have just turned into compost, you know? So it points to a packaging problem, it points to a materials problem, and we oftentimes in our culture tend to almost, you know, not to, for lack of a better way to put it, look down our noses at people who don't recycle. Look down our noses at people who aren't doing things properly with their trash. And I just want to kind of make that one observation to say it's less so much that this is a behavioral thing that we should see as a good habit as a material thing that's making a behavior more of a problem than the fact that people aren't, quote, doing the right thing with this. It's more a materials thing. What are we making this stuff out of? Refuse, reduce, reuse, recycle in that sequence.
Yeah.
Right.
Everything.
Refuse, redesign, reduce.
I like that. That's a good addition.
Difficult to remember.
Is that McDonough? That's McDonough. And McDonough is a kind of designer who's talking about exactly this problem, what it is we make stuff out of. And definitely I recommend his stuff, and his book Cradle to Cradle is definitely some really good information. And Natural Capitalism is written by Paul Hawken, Amory Lovins, L. Hunter Lovins, and McDonough has some pieces in there as well. That's definitely a book that's caused a lot of waves in the whole permaculture scene and ecological scene, because people are just trying to figure out how they feel about it. It's definitely one worth reading and being familiar with a lot of the ideas in it. You can tell just the title of it gets people's goat. They're like, what does that mean?
Wow.
Part of what they're talking about in there is some I was talking about early on about how we're not really a capitalist society, we're a corporate oligarchy, and that Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations had a lot of things about how if it wasn't in the balance with nature, it wasn't going to work as a business idea. And there's a lot of things they point to that are very interesting, that are very effective transition concepts, because they're the kind of concepts that business people pay attention to. And so it starts to get to where, so how are we going to affect Fortune 500 corporations that are making billions of dollars a year to start to realize that killing their market base is not really a good business plan, you know? And that's the kind of stuff that McDonough's talking about.